was a letter I couldn't bring myself to open for almost 2 years. Just a plain white envelope. My name written on the front in ink I didn't recognize at the time. Inside, my father's supposed last words to me. I say supposed because what I found inside that envelope didn't just break my heart. It cracked open something much darker, something that had been buried for 18 years. But let me back up. Growing up, it was just me and my dad, Marcus. As far back as I can remember, it had always been that way. He told me my mother had struggled with addiction and walked out when I was still an infant. He never found her after that. Nobody knew if she was even still alive. And honestly, I never pushed too hard on that, because Marcus was everything. He was my dad, my best friend, my whole world. Every single morning, without fail, he drove me to school and went straight to work. Every evening, he picked me up, shuttled me to practice, helped me study, and somehow still found time to make dinner. He was the reason I graduated as class valedictorian, the reason I earned a full scholarship to run track at college, the reason I believed, with everything I had, that I could take on whatever life threw at me. You and me, we're a team, he always said. Together, there's nothing we can't handle. I believed that. I really, truly believed that. The day he dropped me off at my college dorm, we laughed and joked all afternoon setting up my room. And then the sun started going down, and neither of us could avoid it anymore. We both cried when we said goodbye. He climbed into his old Chevy Silverado, and I stood in the parking lot watching his taillights disappear. I cried myself to sleep that night, thinking about how I'd never gone more than a single day without seeing him. I woke up the next morning, still wearing my jeans from moving day, and I immediately noticed that I'd never gotten his text. His made it home safe text. The one he sent every single time he drove anywhere longer than an hour. My phone was dead. I plugged it in, made coffee, tried to breathe, and when it finally powered on, nothing. No text, no missed calls, just silence. That feeling hit me like cold water. Something was wrong. I knew it the way you just know things sometimes, deep in your gut, where logic doesn't reach. I called him, straight to voicemail, called again, voicemail, again. By noon, I'd called over a dozen times. I called my Uncle Daniel. He laughed it off, said Marcus was probably sleeping in, maybe finally working on that old Camaro he'd been restoring for years. He was at a lake, said he'd check on him later. I called the highway patrol, no accidents matching his truck. I called the local police. They told me he was an adult and had no obligation to check in with his teenage daughter. They suggested I wait a couple of days. Something shifted in me then, something quiet but certain. I grabbed my keys. I drove 2.5 hours in just over 2. I pulled into my neighborhood with my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles had gone white. The garage door opened and his truck was there. He was home. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Dad?" I called out, walking through the door. His keys, his wallet, his phone, all sitting exactly where he always left them on the shelf by the door. "Dad?" The house was so quiet. I mean genuinely, deeply quiet. Like the kind of silence that has weight to it. Growing up, that house was always full of sound, laughter, music, sports on TV in the background. But that afternoon, every single stair creaked under my feet, like the house itself was reluctant to let me go upstairs. I knocked softly on his bedroom door, and then I pushed it open. The first thing I saw was the blood. I won't describe all of it. I can't. What I will say is that I stood there in his doorway, and I understood immediately what had happened, and then something inside me simply stopped working. I called 911. I know I did, because apparently I told them someone was dead, but I don't remember much else until the funeral. Detective Tamara Tilley was the detective assigned to his case. She came to me afterward and handed me 2 things: her business card with a soft hand on my shoulder and a promise that I could call her any time, and a sealed Ziploc bag containing a white envelope that had already been opened and processed for evidence. My name on the front, written in black ink. My father's note. I kept that envelope in my nightstand for almost 2 years without opening it. The 18 months that followed were, I don't have clean words for it. I was hospitalized twice, not for physical injuries. I stopped eating. At some point, police apparently found me walking barefoot down a highway at night in just shorts and a t-shirt. I don't remember that. I moved in with Uncle Daniel and his wife Michelle, who took care of everything while I tried to find my way back to something that resembled a person. Slowly, with medication and therapy, and the patience of people who refused to give up on me, I started to come back. My therapist and I agreed that after 18 months of work, I was finally ready to read the letter. So I sat down at my desk, took a slow breath, and I slid the paper out of the envelope. It was short, much shorter than I expected, just a few lines. He apologized. He said none of it was my fault. He said that ever since my mother's death, the only thing that brought him joy was being my dad, and that now that I was off on my own, he didn't feel like he had any reason to live. I stared at those words for a long time, and then my fist came down on the desk so hard it knocked everything over. My mother's death, not your mother left, not I never knew what happened to her. Her death, like it was just a fact, like it was something he'd always known. I threw things, I cried, and when I finally sat back down and started picking up the scattered pens off the floor, that's when I noticed something else, something small, something I should have caught immediately, but didn't, because I was grieving and medicated and just trying to survive. Every single pen on that floor was a blue ballpoint pen. I only ever write in blue ink, a habit I got directly from my dad. Marcus never used anything but blue pens. It was a thing with him, almost a superstition. The note in front of me was written in black ink. I pulled out the old orange shoebox from my closet. Every birthday card, every note he'd ever slipped into my lunch bag, every graduation card, all of them in blue ink. I laid them out next to the letter and looked at them side by side. The handwriting was close, but it wasn't the same. The way he formed certain letters, the angle, the pressure, it was off. Not dramatically off, just enough that someone who knew his handwriting very, very well would catch it. Someone like me. I went to Daniel that evening holding the letter. I tried to stay calm. I told him what the note said about my mother's death, that Dad had always told me she left. I watched Daniel's face very carefully when I said it. For just a second, just one small unguarded second, something moved across his expression. Surprise, the kind that looks like getting caught. It disappeared almost immediately, replaced by something warm and concerned and practiced. He said he didn't know much about my mother, said my dad kept things close to his chest, said he wished Marcus had opened up more about his struggles, and then I almost left. I almost let it go, but I turned back and told him what I really thought, that I didn't believe my dad wrote the note, that the handwriting didn't match. Daniel's entire energy shifted. He picked up his pen and wrote something on his notepad while he talked me down, gently suggesting I'd made so much progress and maybe I needed an emergency session with my therapist, and had I taken my medication today. I said yes, I had, and I apologized for bothering him, and I left his office. But I'd taken something with me on my way out, a small yellow post-it note from the edge of his desk. Sitting down at my own desk, I unclenched my hand and let it fall. It said pick up Erin's prescription, and the E in my name had a curved back, just like the E in the note. I placed them side by side, dead match. Daniel wrote that note, not my dad. I sat at that desk for hours. I don't know exactly how long. A dozen different versions of what might have happened played out in my mind, each one darker than the last. At some point, Michelle knocked on my door and asked if I was coming to dinner. I said I needed rest. My therapist called, clearly tipped off by Daniel. I let it go to voicemail. At 11 o'clock, when the house had gone quiet, I pulled out Detective Tilly's card from my nightstand. I dialed her number in the dark. She answered on the third ring. I told her who I was, told her it had been 2 years, told her I knew how it sounded, and then I told her what I found. There was a pause, and then she said, "I believe you." 3 words, and I nearly fell apart. It had been so long since someone had said those words to me, without a qualifier attached, without a but or a let's just make sure you're okay first. She told me to get out of the house, quietly, to take the note and the writing samples. She was already on her way. I packed fast, slipped on my shoes, grabbed a backpack with my laptop, a change of clothes, and the folder with the notes inside. I opened my bedroom door as quietly as I could and stepped into the hallway. Going somewhere? Daniel was standing right there. I don't know how he knew. Maybe he'd been listening. Maybe some part of him had been waiting, but he was blocking the path to the front door, and the look on his face was nothing like the uncle I'd grown up with. I tried to play it off, said I was just going for a walk. He pointed at the backpack. I said I might get warm. He took a step toward me. I took a step back. He kept talking, but his voice had gone hard underneath the calm surface. Said he was just trying to keep me safe. Said I should remember who had taken me in. Said I should hand over the note. And then he lunged. He grabbed my backpack strap, and I hit the floor hard, my head cracking against the corner of my chair on the way down. I kicked at him, screaming, holding onto the straps with everything I had. I remembered something my dad had told me years ago, something he said I should never forget if I was ever in real danger. I summoned everything I had, and I kicked as hard as I possibly could. Daniel went down. I scrambled for the window, punched the screen out, and dropped into the bushes below. I was on my feet almost immediately, blood running into my eye from the cut on my forehead, when I heard Daniel land behind me. I ran. Something hard caught the back of my head, and everything flashed white. I hit the ground and looked up at Daniel standing over me with a rock in his hand. Drop it. Hands where I can see them. Detective Tilly's voice, 20 feet away, gun drawn. She'd heard the whole thing through the phone still in my pocket. Daniel dropped the rock, and he got on his knees, and it was over. I spent 2 days in the hospital with a serious concussion. Detective Tilly came by multiple times. The case was officially reopened as a homicide investigation. Daniel refused to talk and immediately got a lawyer, but Michelle didn't. It took her less than an hour to break. Here's what I know now. My mother didn't leave. She never left. She died when I was an infant, during a night that went wrong in ways people with secrets always pretend never happened. My dad, Daniel, and Michelle were all using together. My mother overdosed, and instead of calling for help, they panicked. They hid what happened. They told me she walked out, and nobody ever looked for her, because as far as the world was concerned, she had simply chosen to go. My dad carried that for 18 years. He carried it alone, and he poured everything he had into being the best father he could be. Maybe because some part of him knew he owed me that. And the night I left for college, he told Daniel he couldn't hold on to it anymore, that I was an adult now, that it was time to tell the truth. Daniel couldn't let that happen, so he made sure it never would. There are days I'm still furious at my dad, at the secret he kept, at the years I spent not knowing who my mother even was. But I also understand something now that I didn't before. He loved me the only way he knew how. He built a whole life around trying to make it right. You and me, he always said. Together there's nothing we can't handle. He was right. Even now, even after everything, we handled it. Every night, same routine. I clock out of the store, put my earbuds in, and walk home alone. It's maybe 20 minutes, through quiet streets, past the closed shops and the glowing signs. I've done it 100 times. It never scared me. That night, my favorite true crime podcast dropped a bonus episode. Unscheduled. No description, no title. Just there. I hit play without thinking twice. It was a small town. The host began, his voice low and steady, the kind where everyone knows your name, but little did the residents know. They were about to be rocked by something terrible. I kept walking. The red traffic light glowed on the wet street below me. A black SUV rolled through the intersection. Across the road, a corner deli sat dark and closed, the blue refrigerator lights buzzing faintly through the glass. Empty chairs, feet in the air. The light changed. I crossed. That cool September evening seemed no different for the young woman, the host continued. She'd finished her shift at the local store, started walking home, except she never made it. I slowed down just slightly. Young woman. Local store. Walking home. I mean, that's basically me. I go to Lakeview Community College part-time. I work at a corner convenience store, and right now, at this exact moment, I was walking home. Relax, I told myself. It's a podcast. It's not about you. Her boyfriend reported her missing the following day. Volunteers searched the area for 2 days straight, and then, washed up along the shore of Harrington Lake, they found something. A body, I thought. Please just say a body. A pair of size 9 red Converse sneakers. I stopped walking. I looked down at my feet. Red Converse sneakers, damp from the rain. My heart started hammering so loud I could hear it. Come on, pull it together. Converse are everywhere. Size 9 is the most common women's size. This is not about you. Breathe. I kept walking. Faster now. Forensic analysts compared the wear patterns to another pair of her shoes found at her apartment. The results came back weeks later, and the analyst was certain. I turned a corner, eyes scanning the street behind me. The shoes belonged to none other than Sarah Campbell. I froze. Sarah Campbell. My name. My actual name. I don't know what my face did in that moment. I don't remember making the decision to run. I just started running. The shops blurred past me. My keys were already in my hand. Without a body, the case stalled, but then a witness came forward. Someone had seen a black SUV parked near the lake that night, around 2 in the morning. Dark windows, engine off. I looked back over my shoulder. Empty street. 6 black SUVs in the Franklin area matched the description, but one caught Detective Nolan's attention immediately. The vehicle belonged to a man named John Kelly, a registered sex offender who had previously assaulted a woman with short dark hair and multiple piercings. My hand flew to my ear. 3 piercings on the left, 2 on the right, short hair since last spring, and then I heard it. A low engine hum behind me. I turned. 2 white headlights, moving slowly, deliberately, like the driver already knew there was no rush. A black SUV. I ran, full sprint. The car didn't speed up, it just followed, crawling, patient. The headlights swept across me, and I threw myself left, onto my residential street. The little brown house with the yellow shutters was right there. I hit the porch, jammed my key into the lock, shoved the door open, slammed it behind me. Deadbolt, chain. I slid down against the door and sat there on the floor, shaking and crying in the dark. I heard the SUV pass the house slowly, then nothing. Gabe wasn't home yet. I was alone. I checked every window, every lock, called Gabe, who said he was 5 minutes out. I made my way down the hall, into the bathroom, and set my phone face up on the counter, and then I accidentally hit the screen. The podcast was still playing. It had jumped forward several minutes. "What do you think happened to Sarah?" the host asked. I reached for the phone to shut it off. "Well," said a voice I recognized instantly. She told me before that she'd wanted to run away. I stopped breathing. It was Gabe's voice, coming through my speaker, clear and calm, like he'd said it 100 times. "She did?" the host said. "Why?" She wasn't happy. With her grades, her job, her family. She used to say sometimes she just wanted to disappear, move somewhere nobody knew her, start over. I stared at my own reflection in the mirror. I never said that, not once, not even close. Gabe was lying. "I mean, it hurt to hear, as her boyfriend," his voice continued. "I thought we had a future, but apparently she didn't feel the same. So you believe she just left on her own, rather than something more sinister?" A pause, 3 full seconds. "Yes, that's exactly what I think." The outro music played, cheerful and warm, like nothing was wrong. And then the front door creaked open. Footsteps in the hallway. "Sarah, I'm home." I backed against the wall. "Sarah?" My eyes went to the bathroom window. I crossed the room in 2 steps, turned the lock, pushed the frame up, knocked the screen out. I didn't think. I didn't grab my bag or my jacket or anything. I just went through the window, and I ran. I'm still running. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what that podcast was, or how Gabe's voice got on it, or who was driving that SUV. But I know this, nobody's reported me missing yet, and I don't think I'm going to let them. I have to tell you about Lulu, because if it weren't for her, I genuinely don't know if I'd be here right now, typing this out. And I know that sounds dramatic. I know how it sounds. But just stay with me for a second. My ex didn't want the dog. She was too ugly, he said. Too plain. Not the kind of dog you show off. She's got this big boulder of a head, a weirdly thin body, and these stubby little legs that make her waddle instead of walk. She snores like an old man. She's not pretty by anyone's standards, but she's mine, and she saved my life. Let me back up. 5 months ago, my ex of 6 years told me he wanted to split up, just like that. No tears, no trembling voice. He said it the same way you'd say, "I want pizza for dinner." Then he picked up his bag and left for work. I sat there at the kitchen table with a bowl of soggy cereal and cried for hours. Lulu heard me from the other room, waddled over, and pushed her big ugly head into my lap. That's who she is. When the time came to pack up my things, I realized I barely had anything. The furniture was his, the dishes were his, the mattress was his. He'd always been happy to pay for things, and I'd always been grateful. Looking back, I'm not sure that was the right word. I loaded what I had into a rented moving van and started the drive from my old life to my sister's place in Spartanburg, South Carolina. 10 hours. Just me and Lulu, winding through back roads to avoid highway traffic, watching the sky turn from gold to purple to black. And that's when it started. About 4 hours in, somewhere between nowhere and the middle of nowhere, I heard a loud metallic clang beneath the van. Then it started shaking. The wheel was fighting me, pulling hard to the right. I managed to get off the highway at the next exit, hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. And right there, like it was put there just for me, was a sign. Richard & Sons Auto Repair. A quarter mile ahead. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've heard this story before. Woman alone. Car breaks down. Back roads. Creepy guy in overalls. But it really wasn't like that. Richard Meadows was a pleasant, well-dressed older man with neatly combed gray hair and a buttoned white shirt. He was exactly the kind of man who reminds you of someone's grandfather. His 2 sons were working the garage. One of them, Abel, was quiet and pale, barely made eye contact, took the keys from me without a word. The other son was named Dean, and Dean was, I'll just say it, absurdly handsome. Sandy blonde hair, jaw like it was carved, broad shoulders under his denim shirt, the kind of handsome that makes your face hot for no reason at all. He walked me out to the van, asked questions in this calm, easy voice, and when Lulu growled at him, she never does that, he just laughed it off. She's just protecting her mum, he said. Richard sorted out the billing with the rental company while his sons looked at the van. He sat with me in the waiting area and told me about himself. His wife had passed 1.5 years ago, sudden in her sleep. His sons were getting him through it. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. Not to scare you, he said slowly, but there have been some incidents. 7 young women found dead in the woods past the cornfields down the highway, all of them traveling alone, all of them young. He said it like a warning. I received it like a warning. When the van was ready, I went out to leave. Dean was already gone. Had a date, Abel said. Of course he did. I tried not to feel stupid about the 4 seconds I'd spent thinking about giving him my number. Abel handed me the keys. He smiled when I thanked him, but he didn't break eye contact. And for 1 second, just 1 second, something moved through me, cold and fast, like stepping into a shadow. Drive safe, he breathed. The road that night was what my sister calls country dark, horror movie dark. Just the highway, the corn, the cloud-choked moon, silence, except for far-off train whistles that sounded less like trains and more like something screaming from a distance. I kept getting the feeling of eyes in the fields, like the darkness was watching me, like I was already inside something's mouth. Then the corn ended, forest took over. Dense black trees pressed in from both sides of the road, and that's when Lulu lost it. She started barking like I had never heard her bark, spinning in her seat, throwing herself at the windows, growling at something outside that I could not see. I screamed at her to stop. I almost swerved into the shoulder. My hands were slipping on the wheel. She didn't stop, not for miles. Every few minutes, she'd start up again, louder, more desperate, like she was trying to tell me something I wasn't listening to. The rest of the drive was brutal. By the time we crossed into South Carolina and the roadside strip malls started appearing, Lulu finally quieted, but she didn't sleep. She sat there tense and alert, occasionally snapping her head toward the window like she saw something running alongside us in the dark. I told myself she was just stressed from the trip. We pulled up to my sister's house a little after 3 in the morning. I put the van in park, reached over for my bag, and that's when I heard it. Breathing, not Lulu. Lulu was still, mouth closed, chest barely moving, eyes fixed on the back of the van. The breathing was coming from behind me, from somewhere in the cargo area, deep and slow and deliberate, like someone trying to stay quiet for a very long time. I could barely feel my hands. I fumbled for the door handle. I almost fell out of the van when I hit the pavement. My phone wouldn't unlock. My fingers were shaking so bad. Lulu jumped out beside me and circled low, moving like a predator. Her head was down. Her body was between me and the van. Then something inside shifted. A metallic click, a slow creak, and the rear door of the van swung open. Standing in the darkness, dropping out of the back of my van onto the pavement, was Dean. He was barely dressed, covered in sweat, and he was holding a knife. He looked sick. He looked wrong. All that easy confidence from the garage was gone, replaced with something else entirely, something ugly. He told me I should be thanking him, that he was doing me a favor, that his brother had wanted me brought back to him, that Abel had pointed me out, and Dean had climbed into my van while I was in the office with Richard, and he'd been back there the whole time, through all those miles of dark highway. Lulu kept circling in front of me, snarling. Every time Dean moved toward me, she stepped in front of him. "The dog is dead," he said. Then he lunged. What happened next was fast. Lulu took a slash across her back. She yelped. She hit the pavement, and then she bit off 2 of his fingers. Dean went down screaming. Lulu didn't stop. By the time the police showed up, he was half conscious on the sidewalk, and I was on the floor of my sister's kitchen, holding Lulu in my lap, blood soaking through my shirt, whispering to her over and over. Dean's DNA matched evidence from 7 women found in those woods. He and his brother Abel had been running this operation for a year and a half, right after their mother died. Road traps on the highway to damage cars, then the family shop to bring people in. Richard had no idea. When the police came to the shop, he was devastated. I believe that. A few weeks later, there was a news segment about Lulu. Ceremony outside the animal hospital. Cameras, reporters, a crowd of people who'd showed up just to see her. She stood there and looked at all of them with this expression, like she had no idea what the fuss was about. That night, I let her sleep in the bed for the first time in her life. She hopped up carefully, still sore from the stitches running down her back, turned in a circle, and put her head on my legs with a long, grumbly sigh. My ex had texted me earlier that day. "Hope you're okay," it said. I texted back right away. "I am." 3 dots appeared, then they disappeared. I turned off the lamp. Lulu sighed again and pressed closer against me in the dark. And for the first time in months, I felt completely safe. She's still not a pretty dog, by the way. She still snores. She still waddles. She still looks at strangers like she's deciding something about them that she's not going to tell you. But I know now that she was deciding something that night in the shop parking lot. Something about Dean that I couldn't see, and she absolutely could. I'm forever grateful she's ugly. I'm forever grateful he didn't take her, and I'm forever grateful that she drives safe with me. It was a quiet Tuesday. I'd just gotten home from work, dropped my bag by the door, and there it was. A sticky note on my fridge. Yellow, loopy handwriting that wasn't mine. It said, "Don't forget your keys. I live alone." I stood there for a long moment, just staring at it. My eyes moved to the window. Locked. The door behind me. I'd just come through it. There was no sign that anyone had been inside. Nothing missing, nothing moved. Just that note. Those 4 words in handwriting I didn't recognize. I should have called someone. Looking back now, I know that. But at the time, I was going through something. I'd moved to a new city 6 months earlier. New job I hated. No real friends yet. The kind of loneliness that gets heavy after a while. Filing a police report about a sticky note felt like more energy than I had. So I crumpled it up and went to bed. The second note showed up a few days later. Pink this time. Same loopy letters. Left on the kitchen counter. It said, "Make sure to pack a lunch today." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I packed one. I don't know why. Call it morbid curiosity. That day, the cafeteria was closed. The refrigerator had broken overnight. The food had gone bad. Every single person at the office scrambled for something to eat, and I just sat there with my little packed lunch, the strangest feeling settling into my chest, like something was watching out for me. Something that knew things I didn't. The notes kept coming after that, a few a week, sometimes more. They were always in the same handwriting, always on sticky notes, always left somewhere I'd definitely see them, and they were always right. Take the highway today. There will be an accident on Route 9. Sure enough, I passed the flashing lights on my way home. Janet is going to offer you cookies at the office. Politely decline. I declined. 3 people were sick the next morning. Marcus has been working really hard lately. Tell him he's doing a good job. I did. He cried a little. We became friends. I started testing them, deliberately ignoring the advice, just to see what would happen. One note told me to bring an umbrella, not a cloud in the sky. I left it home. That evening I got absolutely drenched, running to my car in a downpour that came out of nowhere. The notes were never wrong. I tried writing back, left notes of my own on the counter with questions, never got an answer. I talked out loud to the room, feeling foolish but desperate to understand. Nothing. I even came home at weird hours, hoping to catch whoever it was. Nothing. The apartment was always empty, always quiet, always exactly as I'd left it. Then I made a mistake. I bought hidden cameras, 4 of them, tucked into spots I was certain no one could find. I went to bed feeling, for the first time in months, like I might actually get some answers. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen and stopped cold. All 4 cameras were sitting in the middle of the table, gutted, insides pulled out, laid out neatly side by side. And next to them, a single note, "Never do that again." I didn't sleep much that night. After that, the notes stopped, just like that. And I didn't realize how much I'd been relying on them until they were gone. The loneliness came rushing back in. The bad traffic, the small disasters, the moments where I'd think, that would have been in a note. I would have known. A week of silence. Then a green sticky note appeared on my bathroom mirror. "Don't forget to call Mum. It's her birthday." I sat down on the edge of the tub and cried. Not from fear this time. Something else. Something I couldn't quite name. After that, things started getting better. Slowly, then all at once. I got a promotion. Made real friends. Started actually looking forward to mornings. And then, I met someone. Her name was Laura. I met her at a bar on a Friday. The kind of accidental meeting that feels too good to be real. She had auburn hair down to her shoulders, and this laugh that made the whole room feel lighter. We talked for 3 hours without noticing the time. By the end of the night, I already knew she was different. We'd been seeing each other for a few weeks when she invited me over for dinner. her cooking, her place. She texted me her address and told me to come by at 7. I spent most of that afternoon in a good mood, humming to myself, actually excited about something for once. I was heading downstairs to grab my keys when I saw it. Hot pink, the brightest sticky note I'd ever gotten. I picked it up the way I always did, automatically, like muscle memory. The words didn't register at first. My brain kept sliding off them like they were written in a language I couldn't read. I set the note down, picked it back up, read it again. KL, your girlfriend. The drive over was the longest of my life. I kept telling myself it had to mean something else. Kill, like, end things, cut it off. The note must be warning me she's wrong for me, right? My mind was working overtime, building excuses, trying to make the words mean anything other than what they said. I pulled into her street and flipped down my sun visor. A green sticky note fell out into my lap. My hands were shaking when I unfolded it. KL Laura, take the gun from your glove box and shoot her. I knew there was a gun in there. I'd kept it for months and never thought twice about it. Now I couldn't stop thinking about it. I walked up to her door anyway, because what else was I going to do? Turn around and go home? Pretend I hadn't seen it? She answered almost immediately. Big smile. Then she saw my face, and the smile dropped. She brought me inside, fussed over me, kept asking if I was okay. I said I had a stomachache. She was so genuinely concerned that it made something tighten in my chest. The smell of garlic and pasta was filling the whole apartment. She'd been cooking for hours. She went to get me a bowl, and I slipped my hand into my pocket. My fingers found paper. 2 notes, folded together. I didn't want to read them. I read them anyway. The first one said, "Do not eat the spaghetti, drugged." And then she was standing right behind me. I stuffed the notes away and followed her to the table. She sat across from me, chin in her hands, watching me with this excited, expectant look. "Well, take a bite," she said. I said I needed the bathroom. She followed me into the hallway, asking what was wrong, her voice going soft and concerned, and I found the door and locked it behind me and sank down to the floor with my back against the wall. She knocked for a while. "Gary, please, talk to me. What's going on?" I pulled out the second note, the one I hadn't read yet. My heart was pounding so loud I could feel it in my ears. I unfolded it. She is not Laura. I don't know how long I sat there on that bathroom floor. I could hear her on the other side of the door, still calling my name, still asking if I was okay, voice soft and warm and patient. And I kept asking myself, if she's not Laura, then who have I been seeing? Who answered that door? I want to tell you something that happened to me not too long ago, and I still haven't fully made sense of it. I've babysat for maybe a dozen different families by now. It's easy money, no real skills required. But this one night, this one house, changed everything I thought I knew about what goes bump in the dark. It started the way most of my nights do. A couple reached out, asking if I could stay overnight at their place while they got away for a little while. The pay was good, really good, so I said yes without a second thought. I probably should have asked more questions. I probably should have done a lot of things differently that night. The house was something else. I'd been to some nice places before, but this one sat at the end of a private driveway that wound so deep into the woods I genuinely thought I'd made a wrong turn. Then it came into view, this enormous Victorian mansion, dark brown brick walls, half swallowed by the trees, beautiful in a way that also made your stomach drop just a little. The couple who answered the door, the Hargroves, were exactly what you'd picture living in a house like that, gorgeous, put together, and absolutely exhausted. They had that kind of tired that lives behind the eyes, the kind no amount of concealer fixes. Their daughter Lily was 7 years old and the sweetest kid you'd ever meet. She ran up to me like she already knew me and started chattering away about her favorite cartoons before I even got my shoes off. Mrs. Hargrove handed me a folded set of papers on her way out the door. "Instructions," she said, squeezing my hand a little too tight. "Please read them carefully." I told her I would. I tucked them into my back pocket and forgot about them for the next few hours because Lily and I were having a great time. We watched TV, we played games, she laughed at everything and made the whole house feel completely normal. Then I noticed it was almost 7:45. I asked Lily what her bedtime was. She just shrugged and looked at her feet. That's when I finally remembered the papers in my pocket. I pulled them out and skimmed through. And the first line I caught was this: "Lily needs to be in bed with her door locked before 8 p.m. I checked the time, 7:44. We moved fast, teeth brushed, tucked in, lights low. I leaned down to say goodnight, and she looked up at me with these big calm eyes and said, "Don't forget to lock my door." I froze. "Lock your door, Lily. What if you need the bathroom?" She shrugged, same as before. "Mommy always does it. She says it protects me and her. I don't really remember what happens after I fall asleep. But Mommy says I try to leave my room at night, and that's a bad thing." I didn't have a single word to say to that. I just nodded, told her goodnight, and walked out into the hallway. There was a latch on the outside of the door, already installed, like it had been there for years. I closed it. I clicked the latch into place, and then I went downstairs to finally read every word of those instructions. What I found, I wasn't ready for. The letter started politely enough. "Mrs. Hargrove's neat handwriting thanked me for coming, said what a wonderful girl Lily was, said the house could seem a little old and spooky, but not to worry." And then it started listing things. Not house rules, not Wi-Fi passwords, something else entirely. First, Lily needed to be locked in before 8. Under no circumstances was I to open that door after 8. She would cry, she would scream, she would threaten, but whatever came out of her mouth, I was not to open the door. She can't hurt you as long as the door is closed. Between 8:30 and 9:30, I was supposed to stay in the living room with every light on, because around that time I'd start hearing scratching, growling, maybe from Lily's room, maybe from other parts of the house. The instructions said not to worry. As long as I stayed in the light, I'd be fine. After 9:30, I was not to go anywhere dark, not because of what I might walk into, because of what might be waiting there already. Mrs. Hargrove wrote that I might see shapes in the shadowed parts of the house, and sometimes those shapes would try to talk to me. I was supposed to ignore them. She also mentioned yellow cat eyes in the dark. I was told, specifically, not to stare at them for more than 30 seconds. And then there was the basement. Around 10 o'clock, the instructions said I'd begin to hear what sounded like several people walking around down there. Heavy footsteps, multiple sets, she wrote, and I'm not exaggerating here, that I would feel an overwhelming urge to go down into the basement, like something pulling at me. If that happened, I was supposed to drink a cold glass of milk and wait for the feeling to pass. If it didn't pass in 10 minutes, I was supposed to call her immediately. 10:30, something would start running in the hallway upstairs, not walking, running, back and forth. I was to stay on the first floor. If it started coming downstairs, I needed to lock myself in the first floor bathroom, because whatever it was, it would knock on the door, and it would try to sound like someone I loved. My mum, my dad, someone close to me. It was Mrs. Hargrove wrote, really good at it. I was to keep that door closed no matter what, no matter how real the voice sounded. Before going to sleep, I was to leave a plate outside the guest room door, raw steak from the fridge, glass of milk beside it, a piece of paper with the words Parkent Mihi written in red ink, and if I woke up in the night to find something standing in the corner of my room, I was to look away. She recommended earbuds so I wouldn't hear it talking to itself. There were 3 general rules at the bottom of the letter. Don't answer the house phone, no matter how long it rang. If something tapped me on the shoulder, don't turn around, don't move for 30 seconds. Don't eat meat after 8 o'clock. They'd see it as a threat. There was a postscript. If I heard a dog whimpering anywhere in the house, I should leave it alone because they don't have a dog. I was still sitting there holding that paper when the clock hit 8:30, and that's the exact moment the growling started. Not from one room, not from upstairs, from everywhere, every wall, every corner. Like the house itself had taken a breath and decided to exhale something ancient and wrong. And beneath it, I could hear Lily, muffled sounds coming through the ceiling above me, not crying, not screaming, something lower than that, something I can't fully describe. I grabbed every light switch I could reach. I sat down on the couch with my back to the wall. I did not move. I'm writing this now because I need to tell someone, because the scratching just stopped and it is 9:27, and I can already smell something coming up from the basement floor, something earthy and deep and wrong. And in the darkest corner of the living room, just past the edge of the lamplight, there are two yellow eyes looking at me. I'm not going to count how long I've been staring. I'm going to look away now. I'm going to get that glass of milk, and whatever happens between now and morning, I just need you to know that the instructions said if I followed every rule, I would be okay. I'm really hoping Mrs. Hargrove was right about that. There are some jobs that find you, whether you want them to or not. I never asked for this ability, never raised my hand and said, yes, I'll be the one who talks to the dead. It just happened, and once it did, there was no going back. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what I do, and what I do is sit across from people who shouldn't still be here, people who don't even know they're gone. Today, it was Anthony Willis. He came in and dropped into my chair like he owned the place. Young guy, greasy hair, that particular kind of angry that men get when the world hasn't handed them what they feel they deserve. I'd seen his type before, plenty of times. I opened the session the way I always do, slow, calm, let them think this is just a conversation. So tell me about your family, I said. He shrugged. I got a wife. She's 21. That was it. Not her name, not how long they'd been together, just her age, like she was a possession he was describing, and a 2-month-old baby he couldn't even bother to name. I already knew her name. I'd read the file before he walked in. Something was already wrong with this one. He started talking. Once they start, they can't stop. That's the thing about the dead. They've been carrying their stories for so long that the moment someone actually listens, it all comes pouring out. He talked about arguments, about how his wife never gave him what he needed, about how her parents hated him, about how nobody appreciated how hard things were for him, always for him. He couldn't keep still in my chair, hands on his legs, then behind his head, then twisting in his lap. A guilty body will always betray a quiet mouth. And then, he said it. Sometimes I just hear that baby crying and I want to kill her. He said it like it was nothing, like it was just another complaint to add to the list. I kept my face still. I've gotten very good at that. So what do you do when you're angry? I asked him. Quiet, steady. I throw things, break lamps, punch walls. He said it almost proudly, like that was normal, like that was just what men did when life got hard. But here's what he wouldn't say yet, what he was dancing around with every word. That's when I pushed harder. I walked him through it step by step. The fight, the gas station parking lot, the beers, coming home drunk and finding the door locked, breaking the window to get inside, his wife screaming, backing away from him, begging him to stop. She pulled a gun on me, he said, his voice rising. Can you believe that? After everything I was dealing with, I kept pressing, kept asking. Something was wrong with the way he was remembering, gaps in the story, moments where the timeline blurred, like someone who was trying very hard not to see the ending they already know. You came through that door, I said quietly. What happened next? He shifted in the chair. I think there was some kind of accident. No accident, Anthony. What did you do? I think I shot her. The room went very still. I leaned in. What was her name? He flinched like I'd struck him. Please don't make me say it. You can't leave this chair until you do. That's the only way this ends. He cried. He rocked. He did everything a man does. when the truth is bigger than his body can hold. And then, finally, flat and empty, the way a confession sounds when all the fight is gone. Priscilla. Her name was Priscilla. I sat back. Her name was Priscilla. I corrected him, very softly. You died when you were 23 years old, Anthony. You have been in this house for 10 years. The people sitting across this room from you, they live here now. They've been living with you, slamming doors and breaking their lamps and terrifying their kids, and they want you gone. I could feel the couple across the room gripping each other. They couldn't hear him, but they could feel him. They always can. Anthony started fighting his chair, thrashing against something invisible, screaming that it was Haja's house, that nobody was going to take it from him. Some spirits go quietly. Anthony Willis was not one of those. I pulled out a lighter. The personal items were already on the table. His obituary, a prom photo of him and Priscilla, young and smiling and completely unaware of what was coming. A photo of Priscilla holding their baby girl. He saw them. He went pale. Where will I go? He asked, quieter now, scared in a way he hadn't let himself be in 10 years. I don't know, Anthony. I'm still alive. That part's not my department. Am I going to hell? I lit the photos, the screaming that followed. I won't describe it in full. The couple across the room heard it. One of them screamed back. The other pressed into the wall. I've heard it dozens of times, and it still sits in your chest like a stone. Then it was over. The smoke cleared slowly. A sulfur smell hung in the air, sharp and wrong. The kind of smell that doesn't belong in a living room. The couple held each other for a long time before they could speak. Is it gone? The one closest to me finally whispered. He's gone, I said. He won't be back. I gave them the usual instructions. Stay somewhere else for the next couple of nights. The smell would pass. The weight in the air would lift. Kids often remember these things longer than adults, but eventually it fades for everyone. I gathered my things, stepped out into the late afternoon sun, fresh air, real, ordinary, living world air. I get asked a lot if I chose this work, if it feels like a calling, if I find it meaningful. Honestly, I don't know. What I know is that the world has too many Anthony Willises still clinging to places they never deserved to own, and someone has to be the one to walk in, sit across from them, and make them say the name of the person they hurt. That's my job. Not the job I would have picked, but the one I was given, and I'm still not sure which one of us, the living or the dead, needs those sessions more. I never thought a joke could follow you home. But that's the thing about dorm life. You're never really alone. And once something gets into the walls of a place, it doesn't just leave. This is a story about a list of rules. Rules we made up. Rules we thought were harmless. And what happened when something else decided to make them real. My name is Katie. I was a junior at Whitmore University, second floor RA of Hargrove Hall, a historic old building in the middle of campus, all exposed brick and drafty windows, and that particular smell of a building that's been standing longer than anyone alive can remember. I loved that building. I thought I knew every strange little thing about it. I was wrong. It started as a joke. Me and my friend Danny. He was the RA 2 floors up. We were hanging out in my room one Sunday afternoon, killing time on Reddit, reading those creepy rules for the new tenant stories. You know the ones. If the elevator stops on the 4th floor by itself, don't get out. If you hear someone humming in the laundry room at midnight, leave immediately. That kind of thing. We thought they were hilarious, so we started making up our own for Hargrove Hall. Danny said, if someone's microwaving fish in the 3rd floor kitchen and the smoke alarm doesn't go off, don't eat anything from the fridge for 24 hours. I laughed so hard, I nearly fell off my bed. Then I tried one. If the vending machine in the lobby gives you a Mountain Dew when you pressed for a Sprite, drink the root beer instead. Just trust me. Or what? He asked. I don't know. Something bad. That's how it started. Just two bored RAs, laughing at nothing. But then something shifted. The more we wrote, the more we leaned into it. The jokes got darker. The consequences got stranger. Pretty soon Danny was writing them down, and I was suggesting we slip the list under the doors of freshmen just to mess with them a little. We both had access to the whole building. We both knew which rooms had first years. It was the perfect prank. Looking back, I wish I'd stopped right there. We printed 40 copies on plain white paper, folded into little trifold pamphlets, like the kind you'd grab at a dentist's office. Over 2 nights, we slid them under the doors of about 35 freshman rooms across 4 different floors. Here's part of what the list said. The vending machine on the first floor. Never press C7 right after someone else bought a C6. If you're not sure what was bought last, press B4 for root beer. Root beer is always safe. The courtyard. If you hear someone howling around 2 or 3 in the morning on a Friday night, do not turn on any lights. You can look out the window, but do not turn on your phone screen or a lamp. They find rooms by counting lit windows. The old payphone near the mailroom. It hasn't had a line connected in years, but sometimes it rings. Do not answer it. And then one that I wrote as a joke about myself. If you find a crisp, brand new dollar bill taped to your door, serial number starting with F219, you can keep it, but spend it off campus. Do not feed it into the first floor bill changer. I thought that last one was especially clever because those bills were real. I had a stack of them from my grandmother. She used to give them to me at Christmas in little envelopes. I actually tacked 4 of them to the doors of students I knew were skeptics, just to sell it a little more. I should have left my grandmother's money alone. By the next morning, people were already talking. I watched a girl make her friend buy a root beer before she touched the vending machine. I watched 2 guys literally press their backs against the wall when the old payphone came into view, like it had teeth. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from smiling. Danny and I decided to escalate. We printed a second version with a different font, slightly different wording, and 2 new rules. These were printed on orange paper, left over from a craft project. And here's where we made our first real mistake. The orange paper rules said things like, blue walls. If you wake up one morning and the walls of your bathroom have turned pale blue overnight, do something specific before the next night, or someone in your suite will disappear within 30 days. I thought that was brilliant, creative, scary, but totally impossible, right? Bathroom walls don't just change color, so there was no real danger. But something else was paying attention. The first hint that things had gone sideways came from a girl named Priya on my floor. Priya was one of the skeptics. She'd made a whole little show out of flouting the vending machine rule, buying C6 right after someone bought C7, laughing about it to her friends. She thought the whole thing was ridiculous, so she got her soda, she drank it, and she walked out the front door of Hargrove Hall. I was sitting in the lobby. I watched her go, and then I heard the screaming. By the time I got outside, Priya was on the ground, her hands pressed to her chest, both palms swollen and dark red. It looked like bad sunburn, but fast, but wrong. People were already on their phones calling for help. Her breathing was ragged. I crouched down next to her, and I kept saying her name, and I kept telling myself this had nothing to do with us. It was a reaction, an allergy, a coincidence, but her fingernails were bleeding. I don't know how else to say that. Just bleeding from the tips. Like something inside her had built up so much pressure it had to get out. She passed out before the ambulance arrived. We heard later she needed 2 transfusions. I found Danny in the stairwell and I told him, and he just stood there for a second. Then he said, "That's not our fault." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But then it happened again. A freshman named Marcus. Sweet kid, always wore the same gray hoodie, always had headphones around his neck. Marcus had been given one of the dollar bills, one of my grandmother's crisp serial number F219 bills. He needed to buy a snack before a late class, so he fed it into the first floor vending machine. The way the people nearby described it, they all said something different. The machine opened. The panel with the buttons somehow moved. Marcus pulled back, or tried to, but something had his hand. and then the machine closed. He lost 2 fingers. 2 fingers gone. I sat in my room for a long time after Danny told me. I didn't cry. I just sat there. Then I took the rest of my grandmother's dollar bills and the rest of the orange paper, and I put them in an envelope, and I mailed them to my parents' house. I deleted every file on my laptop. I ran a scrubbing program. Like that would help. Danny's reaction scared me almost as much as Marcus's hand. He wasn't horrified. He was interested, like he was solving a puzzle. He had one of our original pamphlets on his desk. Nothing incriminating about that. We'd both collected them as Ra's investigating the situation. And he was going through the list, checking off rules that had activated. That's the word he used. Activated. We'd been together for almost a year. I thought I knew him. I was wrong about that too. Things in Hargrove Hall got worse. Every day there was something new. The payphone rang on a Wednesday evening, and a girl screamed so loud the entire lobby cleared out in about 4 seconds. A guy visiting from another dorm answered it the next night. Whatever he heard, he beat the handset against his own ear until he knocked himself out. Nobody could explain what he thought he was hitting. Someone reheated food from the pizza place 2 blocks over in the 3rd floor oven. The rule said to always use the microwave, even if it makes the crust soggy. The guy who used the oven took 1 bite and spent the next 40 minutes bringing up things that should not have been inside a human being. And then came the night of the howling. I woke up at 3:07 in the morning to a sound I will never be able to fully describe. It started low, like someone humming in another room. Then it rose. Then it split into something that was a howl and a scream, and something animal and something wrong all at once. It echoed off the walls of the courtyard below my window, like it had been engineered specifically to vibrate inside your chest. I knew the rule. I had written the rule. Don't turn on any lights. Don't pick up your phone. Don't look unless you can look in total darkness. I looked. I couldn't see anyone, but I could feel something looking back. There was a knock at my door. A freshman named Amber, barely 19, standing in the hallway in socks and a t-shirt, shaking. Her roommate had turned on the light. Her roommate had opened the window and shouted down at whatever it was. Her roommate's name was Jenna. Jenna was gone by morning, not moved out, not at a friend's place, just gone. Her keys were on the desk. Her phone was on the charger. Her shoes were by the door. I've never stopped thinking about Jenna. Danny came to my room a few nights later, just after midnight. He pushed past me like he'd been invited. He said someone was going to come speak to me soon. He said the word coven. He told me there was a group of people who practiced something old and real, and not the kind of thing you read about in paperback books, and that he had been trying to catch their attention for a long time. He told me our list of rules was his audition. I told him that 2 students had been seriously hurt, and 1 girl had vanished into thin air. He said witches couldn't be held back by ordinary consequences. I screamed at him in a whisper, "You get good at that in the dorms," and he just laughed. He said I needed to tell his coven that the rules were our idea together, his and mine. He seemed to think that would matter. He wouldn't leave, so I made him take the spare bed. I lay on my side facing the wall, and I didn't sleep, and then the howling started again. Danny said no lights before I could even move. I already knew. I lay there in the dark, completely still, listening to that sound curl through the courtyard and under my door and into my chest. I had my phone flat against my mattress so the glow wouldn't show. I pressed it face down against the window for just a second, just long enough for the camera to capture whatever was outside, and then killed the screen. Then I grabbed my keys and my sandals, and I told Danny I was going to check on the floors. I left the door unlocked. I don't know if it mattered. Nobody's seen Danny since that night. That was almost a week ago now. The payphone rang again this morning. I stopped someone from answering it, just barely. The coven, or whoever Danny was talking about, hasn't come to see me yet. I'm hoping they do. I'm hoping someone with actual knowledge of how this works can tell me how to close what we opened. Because here's the thing, the rules we made up were completely fake. We invented them over 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon. There was nothing behind them, no research, No ritual, no intention. We were just two bored people trying to scare freshmen, and something heard us anyway. Something looked at our little list of made-up consequences and decided to make them real. I still have the photo from the window that night. I haven't opened it yet. I don't know if I want to know what's in it, and honestly, I'm not sure knowing would help.